Welcome to Living the Sweet Life with Azucar. Living the Sweet Life with Azucar is a podcast by mental health therapist, spoken word artist, author, screenwriter, and playwright Simone Nicole, better known as Azucar, discussing what it is like to be creative in the working world in her interview segment Ask Azucar, finding solutions to any mental wellness questions in her Q&A segment Work Well Wednesdays, and spilling the tea in her special bi-weekly dating episodic Welcome to the Sugar Factory. Subscribers receive goodies on Freebie Fridays according to their tier level. Please remember to join the Sweet Teas on patreon.com/LA Sugar Factory. Hello everyone, welcome to season 2, and the birds have just started. So my friend just got some birds. If you know anything about Larry, he likes animals, so we just added 2 birds to the house. So we're just gonna have them, occasionally join us if they feel free. But do not mind that. So today, for the episode of Ask Azucar, I have this lovely lady here who I met through going through open mics, and she is a powerhouse. And I love powerhouses. So I'm gonna let her introduce herself, and then we're gonna get through the interview. Go ahead.
Thank you for that sweet introduction. So my name is Megan. I'm a poet, spoken word artist, and aspiring podcaster and actress. I've been in the open mic scene for about almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years officially in April. And thank you. And yeah, I was born in Canada and I've lived in Jersey ever since I was 2. And I come to New York a lot for open mics, and it's been such a ride. And thank you again for having me on. I'm so excited.
I am so excited too. So, okay. So if some of you haven't, there's some episodes that you guys will hear later on where I talk about me going to Canada. So I want to ask Megan here, what is the difference between Canada? Because I know you probably visit. So what's the difference between Canada and being in specifically Jersey? Because I was in Jersey for a bit of my life. So, and then I have family in Canada. So that it's like a triple thing because you have your culture and then you have Canada and then you have Jersey culture, and it's just like, what am I doing? So what was it like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So growing up, I was mostly in Jersey. I don't really remember too much of being in Canada because I left when I was 2. My dad uprooted our whole family to come here because he got a job here. So for the very few times that I have visited Canada, I've mostly stayed in areas where there have been family weddings or stuff like that for cultural reasons. Um,
Mhm.
or I've been on vacations. So I once went on a cruise to Canada specifically where I saw Nova Scotia, Canada. I saw Victoria, British Columbia, a bunch of other parts of
Nice,
Canada.
nice.
Thank you. So each part is very different in terms of the culture. I find that BC in Victoria specifically is very welcoming. It's a very small town type vibe. Everyone will know your name. I had a shopkeeper that I visited one time there. Her dog was there, and I remember she said, "Oh, my dog really likes you, but we also don't recognize you. Like, are you new to town?" And she was very talkative, and she could tell that we weren't from the area, and it was
Mhm.
such a nice type of connection and interaction that I had. So I think about that a lot, even though that happened a little over 10 years ago. And it reminds me of why my people have the stance of, oh, Canadians are so nice. And that's something that I really try to take and implement into my daily life. But mostly I visited Ontario, Toronto recently, which is where I was born. So I have this joke in one of my poems, which is like it's kind of like an intro poem I have for myself where I spell out my name and I say what each letter means. And the
And
G
if y'all have not heard that yet, you are missing out because I was like, that's when I knew. I was like, I hope she wants to be on this podcast because after that poem, I was like, she's a girl after my own heart because she was in it, on it, and being like, you better know who I am. So yes, explain more about the piece.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. So, I have this line in a part of the poem where I talk about how I'm a Canadian brown girl who escaped the six so Drake could keep his soiled reputation. Because every time I mention Ontario, people immediately, or Toronto, people immediately think of Drake because he's from the six. So, that's kind of like where my Canadian knowledge
Mhm.
stops. It's basically visiting those same types of places.
Okay, okay. I got family up there. I got family up there, and I got family that yeah, we do have the Drake Kendrick battle. So I'm going to spare you that. We don't have to talk about that if you don't want to. But what I do want to talk about is when did you start writing poetry and like what started the ball rolling for that?
Sure. So I started writing when I was 6 years old because my teacher gave me a poetry assignment where we had to essentially do blackout poetry. But because we were kids, we are not going to black out every single line because we're not going to have the stamina for that. We want to color the whole page. So we basically just painted the entire book different colors and we just circled or didn't paint the pictures and words that we liked the most. So I remembered writing my first poem ever, very, very award winning, was Cheese is yummy, cheese is yummy, cheese is yummy in my tummy. And it was really, really silly and very 6 year old esque me. And it's something that I still kind of like in myself too because I do really like cheese. So I'm like, I knew what I was doing back then. Um, so that was my first poetry assignment, but I didn't start writing specifically until I was about 13 because that's when I started, fully realizing who I was and know going on your adolescent journey, you don't really have a space to share all your thoughts and personally being like an Indian person, we don't have outlets to like, get therapy or like talk about mental health.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with a lot of people in just the BIPOC community. It's like we've all expressed, and what I love hearing in every poet's works is that there is some type of trauma and there's a whole healing process they're going through. And also people are discovering therapy now, which I really, really love. So back then, like assuming for a lot of us, we didn't really have access to that, or we were told that it was stupid to even consider that. So I was part of that population. So I took to writing, and part of me writing in poetry started there. And then I joined newspaper clubs in middle school, high school, college. I was always on the newspaper team, and I would write poetry then. And then I would incorporate my love of cinema and TV, and I started writing both cinema and TV reviews. And then it went to music reviews, and then I got into political stuff, and then I kind of put an amalgamation of everything together and tried to incorporate poetry into all of those as well. So that was how it started, and that's how it's evolved. And then I found the poetry scene very randomly. I saw that there was an open mic in Harlem, of all places, and
You do stuff over there. It's just, few and far between.
oh, definitely. Like the open mic scene now I know is so great there. But as someone who literally came from Jersey and had no idea what any part of the scene was like, I was like, this is amazing. So everyone there was so sweet and welcoming. And I literally just wrote a poem that day, that very day. And the entire room was an uproar. And I had no idea how to process all of the kind words I heard that day. But what I took away from that is that there's so much community in the poetry scene and that I still talk to a lot of those people from that first open mic that I met, and we haven't lost touch, we haven't lost connection, and I hope that that's something that we can all continue for a really long time.
Poetry community. I had to take a break a little while
Mhm.
and then come back because I tell people this all the time. I'm like, Jesus was never appreciated in his hometown, and he had to go somewhere else, and people paid attention to him. And then when he came back, people were like, "Oh, wait." And then they had to, do the gut check. And I feel like for me, I started writing poetry in Jersey, and
Mm.
then because we had moved around when I was like 9 or 10. So when we got to Jersey from Brooklyn, I started writing poetry there when I realized, my parents actually paid attention to me more when I write them things than when I say them. So it's like, oh, this is an avenue that could change my life. And I didn't really know how it could change my life because now here we are, podcast land, TV land as well. So I totally can identify with your journey because shout out to Signature Magazine in college and shout out to the Columbia newspaper because I was all over that too. So I totally get that journey. Um,
Yeah.
and as far as, and then I think for me, like therapy came later because like I wanted to figure out what's going on in families and what's going on in my family in particular, like what's going up, like what's up with us. And I figured like if I can learn more about people, and I was really interested in abnormal psychology.
Hmm.
And then when I got to school and they said, yeah, you'll never have people in this category, the whole book of abnormal psychology, people with personality disorders, you'll never see them in therapy. And I like almost like gutted myself because I was like, that's my people. Like I want to figure these people out and I want to help these people.
Yeah.
And then it came into something where I was like, okay, maybe not that, but I still want to like, help families and help couples and help entertainment because as I got into more poetry, I started get well, a lot of my friends dubbed as act like doubled as poets and actresses and actors. I see them on TV and I'll be like, wait a minute. Hold on. So there has to be like a connection. So for you to go to like reviews and stuff, I was like, okay, so it really is a cosmic connection between just writing purely and then into the entertainment and into the visual part of that.
Hmm.
And which I want to say for you, like watching you perform some of your poems, you have a visual thing that goes with you. And I want you to keep like developing that
Hmm.
because that draws people in. Like so we get your personality from your Megan poem, right? And then you bring it around with another one and we're like, okay, wait, so she got this little side. And so I like it draws you in. So keep developing that because apparently you're a newbie. I didn't know you just been doing this for 2 years. So this is pretty good on the stage. Very good. Clap that up, clap that up. So
Thank you.
me being like 24 years in the game, like keep
Wow.
developing your art. It transforms, it evolves. And what I tell you is do not throw away your little bit because you never know whenever that cheese poem is going to need to pop up for something else and you can literally like transform it into something bigger.
Hmm.
Like there's things in my first book that when I perform now, I add stanzas or I because now I understand spoken word a little bit more. So I add spoken word techniques to it. So whatever you read in the book is what you're gonna get in the book. But when you hear me perform it, it's gonna be a totally different experience because now, I'm not 12 anymore. I'm not 15 anymore. I'm 37 performing something that I wrote when I was 15, but it's still relevant. And so how am I going to evolve it for now and how am I going to evolve it for my listeners now, the readers now that grow with me. So I
Hmm.
want you like seriously, great start. Keep it going, keep it going. What is something, because now you're saying you're trying to like combine everything. That's
Hmm.
kind of where I'm at too, trying to figure out poetry, psychology, and film.
Yeah.
So what do you envision for yourself when you're, or at least right now, like what are you working on to try to combine it better?
Hmm. Yeah, first of all, again, thank you. That's really sweet of you to say. I'm so touched. Yeah, definitely like you said, I do want to keep expanding upon that. So to answer what you said, part of my journey has, like I mentioned before, I've always really liked film, and just to tie in film would, like you mentioned, would be a great part of that. Um, I acted a lot in short films in college, and I still try to reach out to my friends every now and then to be a part of their projects, whether that be background, extra, supporting actors or actress roles, and just even doing crew work. I've always tried to be more involved in that, and this is something that I really want to hone in on. And I've seen a lot of really awesome and amazingly inspiring poets get into the short film genre, and they've incorporated their poetry into music videos or into short films. And that's something I definitely do want to tap into, but I've also really wanted to make my own short film. And I'm thankful and I'm very thankful to know a lot of people in the poetry and just film industry in general who would be willing to help me to make that. Um,
Definitely help you because my circle knows that I legitimately now have a couple of businesses, and one of them is a film business.
wow.
So whenever you're ready,
Hmm.
because I specialize in BIPOC authenticity.
Hmm.
So like I'm always looking for stories. I'm always looking for things that will authentically tell a BIPOC story or will that or is coming from
Hmm.
a BIPOC or an LGBTQ plus person. Because I want to tell it without the white gaze and the whitewashing of things. I want it to be like deeply rooted in who we are so that people that look like us can see more of us and be more um, inspired. So I'm super excited for you that you were like totally into that. And like, yes, if you need anything, just let me know.
I definitely will. Thank you so much. That's very, very helpful and useful. And I love that you have that in your arsenal. Like that's also a very big part that I feel like that is like has that been like a really big aid for you throughout your poetry journey also?
It's starting to become more into it because I'm working on filmatic poems. Like I'm
Oh.
trying to create like visual. I'm writing poems, but I'm also thinking about the visuals as I'm writing them. Like I need to look for dancers. I need to look for background music. Like this is what's going on in my head when I'm writing my most recent stuff in
Mhm.
Soul Underwater that's coming out soon, God willing, and I Am the Storm. Those two projects that I'm working on simultaneously have a lot of like film things in my head. And it's so funny because I never thought that I would be in the entertainment business at all.
Really?
Like I just wanted to be a poet. I just wanted to write my books. And then my friend Bianca Bethune said to me one day, I want you to write me a movie. And I was like, what? Oh, where did this come from? And the next week, I enrolled in film school. I submitted. I literally my application for film school was just pages and pages of poetry because I didn't have anything. I wasn't thinking about it. And she was like, "Yo, I got this. Like, I read your book, and it's literally like a movie. Like, you need to go to film school, and I want you to write me a movie." So my application was poetry.
Hmm.
I got into film school, didn't even think it was gonna work. Got into film school and I was like,
Yay.
first class of film school, they were like, you need to be a psychologist, a musician, and something else, and a writer in order to be like an author and stuff, in order to be a filmmaker. And I'm like, well, I already do all that. Like, so I guess I'm supposed to be here then. You
Yeah.
know, I had no clue, no idea whatsoever. And her mother saw it too. Her mother was like, yeah, you need to do something. If you're not performing, you can be a hand model or a foot model or something. You need to get and I blew her off for like 10 years.
Hmm.
And then and then when Bianca told me that, I was like, okay, all right, this is your mom sees it and you see it and you started. She just started with like a Switch That Birth and Bad Boys, so I was like, all right, I gotta listen to her because she's got her pulse, her ear on the zeitgeist, and so I was like, all right, let me get to work on this.
Yeah.
And if y'all have not listened to our interview, it is on the podcast. So scroll back and listen to the interview with me and Bianca if y'all want to hear that. But the weirdest part of that whole thing is my dad is a cinematographer. My dad does weddings.
Oh.
He's a cameraman for
Hmm.
anything and everything. The best, by the way. He's very meticulous. He used to have my sister and I look for music to soundtrack anything that he was editing.
Wow.
And I would be like, and I'd just do it because it was fun. Like I love looking up music and I love connecting music to visuals. And it never clicked into my head that at 10, 11, 12, 15 years old, my dad was grooming me to become a producer. Like it didn't connect. And
Hmm.
then like when I did my first film project, I was like, Dad, I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And the way his face looked when he was showing me the camera and showing me everything, it was like it just felt really good.
Yeah.
It felt really, really good. And so gotta be putting puzzles together and you like puzzle pieces together and you're not even seeing it. And sometimes
Mhm.
you just gotta sit back and just watch it make sense.
Definitely.
And
Wow.
so apparently from at least 10, 9, 10, 11 years old, I was being groomed to become this thing. And I didn't understand it until like literally today.
Yeah. So technically your whole journey started when you were like 19 years old,
Pretty
which is
much. Yeah, pretty
crazy.
much.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful because I assume that that also, furthered like a beautiful connection with your dad also,
Yeah.
right? Because like you like have a beautiful thing in art to bond over because I always find that to be so humanly beautiful is when
Yeah.
those connections are made. And there's something cool through art and film is like such a great medium for that. So like that's a really beautiful story and I really appreciate you sharing that with me because like I visualized it as you were telling me that. And I was like, it makes so much sense. And also a little callback to what you said about like your abnormal psychology class and then your
Hmm.
professor like, you have to know psychology. That really is like preparation, honestly, or pre-preparation, because I also relate to that to an extent because I also very much have an affinity for psychology and just understanding human behavior. So like they do all go in hand. So I found that to be really fascinating.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel like we are like conduits. And if we are able to listen to the universe, the Orishas, the gods, whatever you want to call them, that are like talking to us in nature and everything, as writers, our responsibility is to listen to that and heed to that and create to that.
Yeah.
And so in your life experience, what you say will then be seeds for someone else coming next. So we have to listen to everything that is like getting dropped in our bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
so like you having all these interests and you wanting to kind of combine them, it's like, yes, keep listening to your like keep building up your tools, keep building up your bucket because whatever you're going to make is going to be iconic because it's your vision, right?
Yeah. Thank
What
you.
is something that you would want to say to let's see, you said you started to write more seriously around like when you were 11-ish, right? 10,
I was about 13 when I really started.
13.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I don't even remember the content of my poems. They were very cliched, honestly. I can look back and think, oh my God, why did I even think that was cool? I kind of had an emo phase, and it was a very light version of the emo phase where I was like, everything sucks and death
Oh
is.
no, me and Lincoln Park were friends. Like we still
I
friends. Like
love that.
listen,
Gotta love
yes,
Linkin Park.
embrace it, embrace it, embrace it. Because I look back at my poems, I'm like, oh my God, I wrote that. But like, I'm like, okay, you were like 12. Give yourself a break. You're 12.
Exactly.
Have a break. You can adjust it now. You can combine the poems. Like this one time I did a feature and I literally took 4 poems from the first book and made them into one.
Wow.
On
That's
that like that night. Like before we started, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna push this book, I gotta do it in a different way because I'm not in the same mind space. And I was able to take 4 different poems that have a similar theme. I put them together in an interesting way. I hope
hmm
somebody has a video for that. I gotta ask. But like, but
Yeah,
yeah. So
awesome.
love your emo phase. Go back into it. See where you can see what you can pull out. And like, and this is leading into the question of what would you tell her now?
Ooh, It's funny, I have never gotten that question, so I'm happy you asked me that. I would tell her, because this is also something I'm telling my current self now, try to take things with a grain of salt because I am a very anxious person and I've become highly sensitive to a lot of things and I get I have a lot of I've been having a lot of anxiety attacks in person, and that's not something I really want people to see because it just takes me back to childhood of when people used to make fun of me for having them because they didn't understand it and they thought, "Oh, Megan's weird" and all this stuff. But I feel like everyone has their own response to certain things, and that can all stem generationally from how people reacted to their own issues, and it can get passed on to children, which could very much be the case. But aside from that, um, I've always tried to take things, with more meaning in them. And someone could say something to me in one way, and I'll think, oh, but there's more to that. Let me ask more.
Yeah.
But not everybody's willing to give that information. And I've realized and found out over time, information can be both a privilege and a luxury. And it's not
Mm.
something that everyone is willing to give you. And in my culture specifically, we're built on competition. Everyone has to be the best in the room. And if you're not, then you're just thrown to the wayside and forgotten about. And so I had that pressure growing up, but I never fully thought it was real until I started getting into my 20s and I thought, okay, now everyone is progressing in the way that I want to, but I feel so far behind because I'm compared to people going to very elite colleges and
Mm.
studying computer science, and I didn't do that. And there's so many people who I feel like I compare to in STEM categories when I thrive in artistic categories, and I don't think they should be compared and like this is
It's
better.
two different sides of the brain, y'all. Okay?
Exactly.
It's left and right brain. Don't be doing that. I mean, my sister is a unicorn. She used to write children's books. Now she's a scientist, like a marine biologist. She's a unicorn. Do not do that to your kids, okay? Let them figure out what brain they like the best and just do that. And then love them on that. Because I literally was watching Instagram today and there was these two Indian girls who were like hitting high notes that I could never hit and singing Defying Gravity. And Lord knows when I will be singing Defying Gravity in the theaters, regardless if they kick me out or not. It is the song that the soul needs to hear. And to see these two girls singing notes upon notes upon notes. And then in my head going, I know some parent in the back is like, my child should be a doctor. I'm like, did you hear that?
Yeah, so true. That is so very, very true. And I find that to be the most interesting part of people who have that mentality because like you said, your sister's into both, like she wrote children's books and is now a scientist, which is insanely cool. But at the same time, yeah, some people are just not made for science stuff, and that's totally fine. Someone else can be a scientist or someone else can like do something else, and that's totally fine.
Mhm.
If we're good at one thing, we should go with it. Like like I know a lot of people parents wise like they care a lot about money and what comes with it, like, and that's always been a big thing is like money, not even what you're good at, it's how much you can bring in,
How much you
which
can make with what you can do.
exactly. And that was like pressure I felt, but now I'm like I do want to continue in like a way of psychology because I am very interested in it, and I've like always worked with kids, I've worked with elderly people. It's something I definitely really enjoy is like human connection and figuring out why people behave the way they do, because I do struggle with also figuring people out, so it helps me learn in the process.
Yeah.
But what I really to tie this back to your initial question is that I do want to take everything with a grain of salt, and I would tell my younger self that because she and I have spent so much time worrying, and if we could just I'm not super religious, but I do pray to God as often as I can, as often as I have the capacity to. And I ask them, because I have several different gods in my culture, and I ask them, can you please take away my anxiety? Because it is so burdening sometimes to have to explain to people, hey, I'm not like, I'm asking if I'm mad at you because I need certain types of reassurance. And also, I'm a poet, I think, with my brain and words, and they all kind of jumble together.
Yes.
So, but that's not the crux of it. It's a part of it. So it's not an excuse, but at the same time, handle me with care. I am a snow globe. So,
That will be okay. I'm putting it out there. I'm gonna ask you now. We will do a collab poem called Snow Globe
ooh.
because I am also anxious up the wazoo. So I literally, when I'm doing therapy, like my old supervisor used to get really mad at me because he'd be like, "Why does all your clients have anxiety? Why do all your clients have depression?" If it's coming to me, I'm not going to misdiagnose them because you feel like my metrics are off. Like if I see it because I've lived it too, and I can see correlation. Hello, you know what I mean? Like, and like if I have tools that are working for my anxiety, I'm gonna give it to somebody else too.
Yeah.
Which is why I started to write Soul Underwater about anxiety and depression and coming through it through poetry.
Hmm.
Which is why it's a hard book to write because I have to put myself in those moments in order to effectively write these pieces that kind of give you the whole story so that she can come out of her net because it's about a mermaid. So she can come out of her net and
Yeah.
just be who she is. So I would say, like, you know, acknowledge your anxiety, give it its space, but
Yeah.
also say, like, okay, what is this anxiety trying to teach me? Like, what do I need to learn in this moment? Or even I've written a couple of poems. I've written a couple of poems where I've literally talked to my anxiety or I've talked to the thoughts in my head.
Hmm.
And so they haven't come out yet because I'm still trying to like, navigate how to put those out. But like sometimes we have that tool and like we only see the way we can use it because of the way we've seen in the past. And so I challenge you to try to see that because I definitely get it. Like it's so scary because you got to explain to people like, okay, I'm gonna ask you this question because it's been running through my head, but like I literally had to text somebody yesterday, like, okay, my anxiety is going crazy, so I just asked you this question because like the response I got after it was like, why would you think that? I was like, because my anxiety goes down a rabbit hole, and
Yeah.
sometimes my anxiety talks before I can, edit her.
Hmm. Definitely.
And what I also learned from trying to navigate this world of being a therapist and somebody with anxiety is the people that want to learn you and the people that want to stick around and the people that want to champion with you will understand your boundaries and will adjust. The people that are not supposed to stay around, they won't. They'll find a problem with it, and then that's just God telling you like, all right, you got to cut this one off, or oh, they're you need to limit your interaction with them because then it becomes like, are you feeding my spirit or are you draining my spirit?
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
so I would say do not shy away from your anxiety, embrace it and figure out what it's trying to tell you. And also maybe you do need to like just write it out, even if it's something that you don't share with anybody and you just need to get it out of your body. Because the more we keep it in our body, the sicker we get. So the more we let it out, the healthier we are. So even if it's just letting it out for yourself and not sharing it, like let it out somehow.
Thank you for that. Um, because I've had, you know, I know a lot of people in my life who would tell me just something arbitrary or say to me, "Oh, I mean, it's." I've had people say like, "Oh, it's all in your head. Your thoughts are lying to you," and all the typical stuff you might hear in anxiety character number three in a show or something,
Right.
and or anxious character, yeah. And I I was always I never really liked when people said that because it sounded condescending to me, even though I know people do mean well. They just don't understand it in the way that someone like you and I might, who actually has anxiety and understands, you like you said, you understands psychologically like how anxiety works, which is amazing. Um, and that's something that I aspire to learn more about too. So, I do appreciate that advice because I don't really write out a lot of my issue, like the anxieties I'm facing a lot of the times. Sometimes I'll try to talk out loud or I'll record a voice note, but
Oh,
even then
those
I
are
don't
good.
find like, sorry?
Those are good. Those are good. Voice notes, yeah.
Thank you. I agree. So, but I do want to try to channel it more into physical writing because I feel like that would help a lot with also structuring more poems because I don't write as often as I would like to. And I feel like I could garner a whole new piece just by even spewing out random thoughts. It might not even make sense, but yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. And like I love us as creative people because we can literally create something out of nothing,
Hmm.
which means that we can create ourselves out of our moment. Y'all need to follow her, Megan on the mic,
Thank
on
you.
Instagram. Okay, Megan on the mic, Meghan dot on dot the mic. Okay, do that. Do that. And I will see y'all on the next episode. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for listening to Living the Sweet Life with Azucar. Check us out on Instagram at La Vida Dulce Pod and at LA Sugar F on Twitter, and join the Sweet Teas crew on our Patreon to get behind the scenes access, exclusive first looks, and customized Azucar Welcome to the Sugar Factory merch. Check out our website, sweetlifewithazucar.libsyn.com, and don't forget to DM us at La Vida Dulce Pod for your questions for the Work Well Wednesday segment.